To me, crawlers are like the Riddler of the cryptic world. Unlike Bigfoot and Dogman, whose descriptions are, for the most part, pretty similar, crawlers seem far more random. But the one constant they have is the ability to strike fear in the hearts of anyone who sees one. Welcome to the In-Between. I'm Caroline, and today we go deep into the woods with 3 terrifying encounters with crawlers. I don't know the name of the original poster of this story, so we're going to call him Ken. And Ken loves hunting. Sometimes deer, maybe a turkey for Thanksgiving, but mostly hunts wild boar. And boar are a huge problem in the US. A sow can have 2 litters a year, each of which being 10 pigs or more. Given that pigs eat anything and everything, it's not hard to see why the Department of Fish and Wildlife just tell hunters to have at it for the most part. Where Ken lives, it's illegal to hunt most large game animals with either night or thermal vision scopes, with the exception of boar and coyote. Game on! No pun intended. He saves his pennies for a whole year. And despite the fact that it costs twice as much as his actual rifle, he buys that thermal scope, takes it to the range, and sights it in. And he knows just the right spot for his first night hunt. The night starts pretty quietly, with Ken spending most of his time messing around with his new toy and figuring out how to use it. He sees a few deer, but it's not deer season, so he waits and waits. He finally caves to his boredom and moves to another spot. Probably wasn't going to be any better than his first spot, but it keeps him busy and it gives him a new area to look around with his scope. After an hour or so of amusing himself with the scope's bells and whistles, dawns on him that the spot doesn't have much animal activity at all. No rabbits, no owls, no nothing. Ken hadn't even seen any deer since he left that first spot. Why was this spot so lively during the day, but dead at night? It's about 2 a.m., and after about 4 hours of seeing exactly squat for boar, starts thinking about packing up. Maybe he'll just do a little target shooting before he goes. He hears a crunch come from the direction of the first spot. Before he even gets his scope over there, he sees the silhouette of a small bear pushing through the bushes. He looks through the scope, adjusts his range, zooms in a little. Now just know that Ken's scope isn't night vision. It's a thermal scope. So it's not like the rainbow of moving colors like you see in the Predator movies. It's kind of like a black and white version of that. As Ken hones in on this bear, he feels a shock roll through his system. It's not a bear. It's a man. At least that's the closest thing his mind can relate it to. Now, who in the hell is sneaking around in the bushes in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m.? Is that a game warden? Can't be. He would have seen their headlights coming up the road from where he's perched, and it's too far to have walked from anywhere else. He is 30 miles away from anything. Ken's about to call out when he dials his scope in a little better and notices the man's naked. No shoes, pants, or anything. He watches its movements with disturbed fascination as it twitches and grabs at the foliage like a squirrel or something, sniffing around and touching the tree. Wasn't that his tree? The one he'd been leaning on earlier? That thought freaks Ken out. Can it smell him? Then the man does something Ken still has nightmares about to this day. He squats down low with one hand on the ground between his feet, lifts his head straight up like a dog howling at the moon. And Ken hears it. A voice coming from that direction. A very compelling female voice. "Help! I'm lost." For a long time, neither of them move. Ken aims his rifle at the dirt between the man's feet. He can't bring himself to aim directly at another person. Gun safety 101. Don't aim at it unless you intend to kill it. But who is it? Is this some guy living off the grid? Or a feral person? Maybe a tweaker who wandered off while he was high and got lost. But why was his voice so feminine? Ken hears that voice again.
Help, please. I can't walk.
What? This is BS. Not only can the man walk, but when Ken first saw him, he was traipsing around pretty easily for a naked person, so much so that Ken mistook him for a bear. Ken thinks, this guy is trying to lure me to him with a damsel in distress routine. Luckily, because nothing was going on earlier, Ken had already packed up most of his gear. He may have left behind a hat and a sitting pad, but at this point, he doesn't give a crap. He takes his eyes off the man for a second to get his pack on. He quickly buckles his chest strap and scrambles to get the rifle scope back to his eye. The man's in the same spot, but he's staring right at Ken. The thermal scope has this effect that makes animal eyes appear white, and Ken can clearly see these two huge white shining eyes. And to his horror, Ken sees him smile. How in the hell did he hear Ken get up and put on his gear? He is easily 150 yards away.
F off!
Ken screams in that direction. The man stands upright, and it hits Ken how tall and skinny he is. Easily 6 feet and super skinny. He takes a couple long strides in Ken's direction. Ken thinks, I don't think so, and fires a warning shot over his head into the trees. The man freezes, drops down on all fours.
The next one will F you up. Go away!
Ken screams. He stays on all fours, but now Ken has his sights trained on him center mass. The man's eyes are just above the grass like a large cat or something. Ken's trying to stop shaking and heard his voice crack a little bit on his last warning. He is terrified. The standoff feels like it goes on for an eternity, but it probably only lasts a minute or two. The man breaks the stare down by bolting left toward the tree line opposite the road. So much for not being able to walk. And he's moving so fast that Ken can hardly even keep the scope on him. The man disappears into the bushes, and Ken sends another round sailing high in his direction, just for good measure. He racks another round and tries to swap mags for a fresh one, but drops the old one in the process. He doesn't even bother looking for it. He's not far from his truck, and he just wants to get out of there. From the same area of trees the man had disappeared into, Ken hears this weird screaming sound that could either be a laugh or a cry. He scrambles up the trail and gets back to his truck, totally winded. He tosses his gear into the cab, making sure the rifle is in easy reach on the passenger seat, and takes off. Ken tells the Fish and Game department that they need to go check out that area, that there's some deranged crackhead living off the land like some kind of caveman. But all they do is scold him for hunting at night alone. Ken has since gone down the rabbit hole on cryptid stories and really doesn't know exactly what he saw that night. But if these things really exist, he thinks he may be the one who dodged a bullet that night. Now, as you know, we are all about uncovering the full story here on the Inbetween, peeling back the layers to reveal what's hidden beneath. That's exactly why we reached out to team up with Ground News. They think like we do. It's not just about the stories being told, it's also about the ones that aren't. Ever wonder why some stories get all the airtime while others seem to slip through the cracks? Ground News shines a light on this. With their unique feature, you can actually see who's not covering a story that should be front and center. It's a powerful tool to spot bias, to see who might be trying to manipulate the narrative and who's going to give it to you straight. This is crucial for us, and we know it's crucial for you too. You want the truth, the whole truth. That's why we're so pumped to partner with Ground. We want you to have this tool in your arsenal. Just click our link in the description below to get started. With Ground News, you're equipped to ask the harder questions. Who's not telling me the full story? Who's trying to distract me from what's really important? It's about being informed, but it's also about understanding the landscape of the information. This is an affiliate deal, so taking advantage of this offer monetarily supports our channel at the same time. Dive in with Ground News and join us in this journey of critical thinking, skepticism, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Let's just not consume news. Let's analyze it, question it, and demand the full picture. This story was posted by Reddit user Pinche Avocado, so we're going to call her Carmen. Carmen's sighting occurred back in 2013 at the end of summer when she was 20 years old. And she's never been real hip on folklore or horror movies, and doesn't watch horror movies still to this day because they kind of mess with her head. So what she saw, she had nothing to base it off of, zero frame of reference. So she thought she was crazy for a while. This happened at her parents' house out in the country. They have a couple of acres of land with almond orchards as far as the eye can see. Hundreds of acres surrounding the house. About 4 miles away, there's a good-sized river with lots of canal running everywhere. Carmen's family grows weed, the devil's lettuce, and it's about time to harvest it. So on this night, her dad and uncle are going to be gone, so they put her cousin and his friends in charge of watching over the crop. Carmen decides to tag along because this is the perfect opportunity to hang out with her cousin's friend, who she is totally crushing on. So the whole gang's out there for maybe a couple of hours. They hear some kind of ruckus out in the orchards. It's pretty loud for a couple of seconds, and it doesn't sound like any animals they know. It dies down, but they wait for a few minutes to go to check it out. They pick 2 people to stay while the rest head out to go find out what's going on. It's a full moon out that night, almost like daytime. Everything is lit up and it's easy to see. Now, orchards usually have a few dirt paths that are almost like roads to make it easier to move around the machines and the sprayers and stuff. So they pick one and start walking. Carmen squats down every now and then so she can see under the tree line, looking for any people or cars that aren't supposed to be there. And there's nothing. They're about 2 orchards in without finding anything and decide to head back. That's when Carmen gets the worst feeling in her gut. It's like this primal fear that makes her want to run, but she's frozen. She turns her head, and about 4 or 5 rows to her right, she sees this thing. It's tall and gangly, about 7 or 8 feet tall, and walking parallel to them. She can see the profile of its face and can make out sunken cheeks and what looks like a deep, hollow eye socket. Its skin is a grayish white, and the texture reminds her of dolphin skin. It was flesh and bones, but not in a starving way, more like that's how it's naturally built. Carmen doesn't know why, but it never once looks at her. She really wants to run, but she's afraid that if she does, this thing is going to chase her. And she doesn't say anything to anybody else because she knows that they're kind of a rowdy group that's usually itching for a fight. And she doesn't want them to run after it because she has no idea if this thing is dangerous or not. So she just stays quiet and walks a little closer to her friends. They round a corner and the thing disappears from Carmen's view. Since then, she's questioned herself a lot. Did she really see what she thinks she saw? But her conclusion is always, yes, I did. Because she can vividly remember seeing the changing shadows on its face while it walked through the trees. Carmen hasn't seen one since, and she hopes she never does. Makes her question what else is out there, and she doesn't want to find out. The teller of this tale is unnamed, so we're going to call him John. Both John and his girlfriend are the outdoor types. Consequently, their idea of a romantic getaway is to load up their camping gear, get out of the city, and rough it for a long weekend. The two of them against Mother Nature seems to keep them in tune with one another. And sometimes they go to public campgrounds, but it's just not the same experience when you're disturbed by other people all the time. So they prefer to go a little more off-grid, which means that occasionally they have to just pretend that they didn't see that private property sign and make their own campsite. On this particular trip, they're driving down a gravel road through some pretty thick woods when they see one of those signs saying, "Private property, keep out." But the sign is really aged and weather-beaten, so they convince themselves that, well, it was private property a long time ago, but maybe it isn't anymore. They climb out of the truck and head straight into the woods to see if they can figure out whether anyone still lives here or not. They find a house, if you can call it that. It's practically sagging in on itself, and the tires have rotted off the cars, rusting away in what can barely be discerned as a yard. A quick glance in the window is enough to tell that nobody's living there, and it's highly doubtful that anybody would be anytime soon. So that settles it. They have found their new campsite. It's the perfect setup, and it takes them all of about 3 seconds before they start making plans to camp there again. They build a fire and set up camp. They hear no cars. They hear no people. It's almost too good to be true. When it's time for bed, they put out the fire and climb into their tent. The night is perfectly still. John is awakened by the sound of an intensely rapid whispering, words and sentences all running together. He opens his eyes and takes a mental inventory of what's happening around him. The whispering is coming from his left. His girlfriend is sleeping on his right. He lays still and tries to listen to what is being said. At first, John thinks some nut jobs are arguing about exactly how they're going to kill them. But the voice is addressing him by name and saying some pretty nasty things about both him and his girlfriend. Fear quickly turns to anger, and John grabs the flashlight, shoots out of the tent, and shines the light around. There's nobody. Now he's spooked. Now, he's not the kind of guy that believes that there's a ghost under every rock, but he's not above thinking that there's more to this existence than just what you can see. He manages to talk himself into believing that it was just a dream, but he didn't really believe it. Just as he's about to fall asleep the second time, the whispering returns. And since he's already awake, he reacts faster this time, grabbing the flashlight and bursting out of the tent. And this time, the light flashes on a form that makes fear rock his entire body. Should have been a person, but the arms and legs are way too long, and it runs on all fours, moving with this insect-like motion of starting and stopping and starting and stopping. Its movements look choppy and unnaturally quick. During one of these pauses, it looks over its bony shoulder right at John and grins, showcasing its long, sharp teeth. John nopes his way back into the tent, and I think it's safe to say he barely sleeps the rest of that night. The next morning, John's girlfriend asks, "What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." He tells her about what he saw the night before, and she's kind of torn between believing him and thinking that he's just pranking her. Who could blame her? She does, however, talk him into spending one more night out there. Maybe whatever it was has had enough fun, it will leave them alone. If it were violent, it wouldn't have woken him up, it just would have attacked. Makes sense, I guess. But John's nerves are electrified the entire rest of the day. He keeps thinking he sees that thing behind trees, doing impossible things like completely disappearing behind a tree that's way too thin, like you see in some cartoons. The closer the sun gets to setting, the harder his heart starts to beat, and he feels guilty for not being present with his girlfriend. He's there with her, but his mind is off someplace else, on high alert and watching for this thing to come back. And the more the day wears on, the more John's girlfriend begins to realize that he is telling the truth, that he truly thinks he saw something. The night comes, and John is pretty sure that there's no way he can fall asleep. But exhaustion wins, and he sleeps like a log. No strange monsters wake him up. He feels better the next morning, a little more sane, but physically he's still pretty beat. And they go home and try to focus on the good, non-monster parts of the weekend. That night, they're in their own bed, and John hears that whispering again. It's next to his ear, which means the damn thing is on the bed between him and his girlfriend. He jumps up like a madman and is immediately knocked back down when something razor sharp rakes across his chest. When he finally gets a light on, there are 4 deep claw marks running from his shoulder to his waist. John has no clue what this thing is or why it has singled him out. Maybe next time they'll pay more attention when the sign says, "Keep out." Confession time. I don't really know what to think about that last story. Number 1, who would actually go back to sleep after seeing something like that? And 2, what guy wouldn't wake up his girlfriend to at least let her know of possible impending danger? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you need to wash down this tasty morsel of video horror with even more scary crawler adventures, click this video right here. Be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the In-Between.